The more I think about it, the more that I realize that Skyrim is just a war crime simulator. I mean, everything you do in this game classifies as either an invasion or violates one of our many Geneva Conventions. Which got me thinking, could you beat Skyrim without violating any of those conventions? Or, in simpler terms, without committing a single war crime? First off, what are the Geneva Conventions? Well, I'm no history buff, so I reached out to my old high school teacher to give us a quick rundown. But it seems that he's not interested. Probably shouldn't have cheated on that government test. In essence, the Geneva Conventions are a set of international rules that govern the boundaries of warfare, and as hard as that may be to wrap your head around seeing as it's literal war, I'll name a few examples of the rules. There's the simpler ones, like no murder, enslavement, torture, etc., but then there's ones that go a bit more in depth on specific issues. Like a ban on biological warfare, or rules against turning a soldier against their home country to fight for a hostile force. As you'll see as we progress further into this challenge, a lot of these guidelines are pretty vague, in ways that both allow for loopholes to be found and punishments to be enforced against the offender when seen fit. In order to execute this challenge in the harshest way possible, I'm going to take it at face value as it is. But first, let's set some very important ground rules. Your followers cannot commit any crimes for you. You can't steal something and give it to them, or use them to attack citizens or others on private grounds. Killing the dead, such as draugrs or skeletons, do not violate any of our conventions listed. While we aren't able to, let's say, mutilate the dead or humiliate them, they are already dead and therefore not officially recognized to gain protection. However, we cannot take anything from these tombs the dead reside in, since that would be grave robbing, which categorically could fall under humiliation of the dead, which is a war crime. This means gaining any sort of weapons early game is going to be really tough. While the same thing applies to creatures such as dragons who are shown to possess intelligence and free thought, I will never be making the first attack. Dragons attack you out in the open, which means neither of you are trespassing. So in order to ensure we don't constitute straight up murder, I am only going to act in self-defense. And this goes for everything that doesn't take place on private grounds. The last big thing I want to mention is the use of magic. We don't necessarily have a real-life counterpart to just shooting ice or fire out of your hands, but in some form, you could probably make the argument that this classifies as not only cruel, but also a form of biological warfare, especially spells like poison runes or paralysis. I also know that Skyrim is a really buggy game, and I'm going to avoid any intentional glitches that couldn't be performed in real life, and in my testing, most didn't make the cut. But if we're just going to be doing the main questline, I'd rather make this more of a challenge for myself. Why stop at just war crimes? Why not try to avoid any kind of crime? So, no magic, no stealing, no murder, no glitches, and most importantly, no crimes. Easy, right? Well, there's only one way to find out. Starting off our run, we choose to go with Hardver, so we get early access to the tower key without having to murder anybody. We grab some potions he offers us and we sprint out of our cave to Riverwood. Along the way, we activate the Warrior Stone, since the only other options being Mage and Thief, which are both banned in our run. Once there, we stop to activate the Golden Claw quest, so we can gain some extra money later on. This is super important, because we aren't allowed to take anything from any kind of grave or ruin, which is where a lot of your early game gear and money will come from. On our way to Whiterun, we encounter some wild dogs that are looking for a fight, and we just have to choose to ignore them. If we're able to run away, we can avoid any kind of senseless violence and keep this challenge pure. When we arrive, we head to Dragon's Reach and talk to the court wizard, who sends us to Bleak Falls Barrow for some nerd shit, and of course we oblige. The hardest part of Bleak Falls Barrow is trying to avoid the bandits. Since we don't have a lot of ways to grind out experience points, we're going to be stuck at a very low level for most of the game, making us a very easy target. Once we do make it past, however, we find Arvel the Swift, one of our first little puzzles in the run. I don't really have any reason to kill him since he didn't attack us first, and in-game I wouldn't know him as the man who stole the claw, so to me, he's just as innocent as I am. But here's the catch. From this point on in the dungeon, the dead come to life, and we can use these Draugr to take out Arvel, lead the Draugr into this gate for an accidental death. Purely out of respect for the fallen, we can try to lay Arvel to rest, then notice he has a very suspicious stolen claw on him, take it, and keep going. With a total of 0 crimes committed, not even 1 spider killed. You could make a case for this being stealing or grave robbing, however, we already know the claw isn't his property. Once we reach the Draugr Overlord at the end of the ruins, we can wait for him to attack us first, then react in self-defense, slaying him and taking our Dragonstone. But hold on, once again you might be thinking, wouldn't taking the Dragonstone count as looting? If we would have came here before Whiterun, sure, but there is a catch. Bleak Falls Barrow is under the jurisdiction of Whiterun, meaning that Jarl Balgruuf has control over it. The Jarl sent us to his trusted court wizard, a man of power, for help, and that man told us to go retrieve the stone from Bleak Falls. Following? All of this land belongs to Jarl Balgruuf. So if he tells us to go grab something specific for him from a gravesite or a ruin, it's within the law to take it. But we can only take that. Anything extra would be seen as looting, meaning we're going to leave all of this gold behind. Next, we go fight a dragon, die a few times, then get summoned by the Greybeards, who make us climb up 5,000 flights of stairs just to hang out, I guess. After scaling this mountain for about half an hour, we finally reach the peak at High Hrothgar, and begin our training as the Dragonborn. The only questionable action here is when the Greybeards ask us to shout at them to prove our Thuum. Obviously, yelling isn't a crime. If it was, my downstairs neighbor would be in a maximum security hold. However, in the world of Skyrim, your voice is a weapon, and the Greybeards are essentially asking you to hit them with your weapon. I see it more in this light. When testing out body armor for training videos, police will sometimes wear the vest when being shot at, in a show of confidence or to demonstrate the functionality of the vest. Before you shout at the Greybeards, they also assure you the same thing. I don't think it's a crime to test a weapon that you know won't be harmful. Anyways, we show them our voice, learn a new shout, and are sent to go retrieve the horn of Jurgen Windcaller from Ustengrav. Now, the Greybeards don't have the authority to tell us to go grave rob, but as anyone who's played Skyrim will know, the horn actually isn't in the Temple of Ustengrav, it's already been stolen. All you have to do here is make your way down, don't take or kill anything, and read the note found on the altar where the horn should be. This note takes you back to Riverwood, where you'll find Delphine, who gives it back and starts the next questline. You and Delphine head to Kynesgrove to witness the resurrection of a dragon, and then subsequently kill it. As long as the dragon hits you first, you're able to react in self-defense, or just let Delphine take it down herself and look away in ignorance. For a long while on this run, nothing of interest happens up until the Thalmor questline, where you're sent into the embassy to retrieve some notes on dragon resurrections. Unfortunately, this questline is a major part of the story and cannot be skipped without the use of some major glitches. The first unavoidable crime is simply by just activating the quest. You're sent to infiltrate the Thalmor Embassy in the guise of an invited party guest. But the secret here is that you aren't invited, and this is an obvious form of trespassing on private grounds. Although not a war crime, this still is a crime by entering the grounds under false pretenses. You could also make a case for forgery being involved here as well, but we're not the ones who forged the invitation, we just received it and used it. The invitation also isn't officially signed by any kind of organization or person, so it might as well just be "she wants me here, trust me," written on a wrinkly napkin. Pinning forgery on us as well would be hard to prove in a court of law, especially if we aren't the forgers, so one crime for trespassing. But it doesn't end here. The only way to escape the embassy after entering is through this trapdoor on the ground, whose key is located on one of the embassy guards who spawns after you read the notes you found. You can't pick the lock, you can't backtrack back to the start, and you can't fast travel. There is only one way out, and you only have two choices. You can either kill the guard and take the key, a pretty heinous crime if you ask me, or you can sneak by and pickpocket the guard while they threaten Melbourne. While both count as one crime, one is obviously a bit less messy. So with that, we pickpocket our guard and we head back to Delphine. I'm gonna save us all some time. From the second you enter the Ratways to save Esbern, to the moment you enter Skyhaven, as long as you don't loot anything or hit anyone, no crimes are even available to be committed. The only thing that could be a crime is how slow Esbern chooses to follow you. Like, come on man, you're a fucking blade. From Skyhaven, you head to the throat of the world and learn about the Elder Scroll, which requires you to go all the way to Winterhold and then to Septimus's outpost, where he sends you to Blackreach, aka just a lot of fast traveling. Again, just don't loot or kill anything and you'll be fine on your way. Now, the best strategy that I've found for Blackreach is equipping your Whirlwind Shout and just going as fast as possible. Solve a boring puzzle, watch a boring cutscene, sit through a boring political meeting, and trap a dragon. Seriously, the fact that they haven't added a skip dialogue option in the 7 re-releases of this game baffles me. The even worse thing though, is the fact that they removed the ability to turn off autosaves upon entering a new area from Oblivion. The Thalmor Embassy and the final dungeon of Skuldafn were horrendous, since enemies are able to just spawn on top of you and kill you before you even gain control of your character. If the game decides to spawn you in the wrong moment, it will lead to tons of random softlocks that make you reset your save to before the questline. Like seriously, I love this game, but come on. My favorite of these softlocks is right here, where I skip the puzzle that lowers the bridge, so these guys can't get across and I can progress without being followed. But somehow, they're able to reach the next room before I am, and I had to reset the entire dungeon since my autosave screwed me over. Anyways, whatever, Skuldafn goes by fine. The very end can be a bit tricky though, so here's my strategy. Take out the Draugr Overlord to gain the key to open this door. The Draugr is already dead, so no harm, no foul. What is foul though is taking the key off his dead body, which is looting. All you have to do is just place that back in his body to negate the crime from ever happening. Because you're fairly low level in this run and probably have all your points in HP, you should be wearing heavy armor, most likely the blade armor, which will slow you down. Take off all your armor to gain every single inch of extra speed and endurance. Equip the Whirlwind Shout and exit back to the outside. You have to be very quick here. Your goal being arriving at the portal to Soverengard before the Dragon Priest closes it, which would require you to not only fight him at a lower level, but also loot his dead body. So instead, just be faster. Sprint around this corner, and once he stops moving, whirlwind sprint parallel to him and drop off to enter. It's not that hard of a trick to nail, but it might take you a couple of tries. And to be honest with you, that's pretty much the run, besides one major caveat. And no, it's not fighting Sun, since that falls under the same thing the Greybeard situation did, where he's the one looking for the fight. It's actually the Horn of Jurgen Windcaller from earlier in the run. Most people don't know this, but you can actually return the horn after bringing it back to the Greybeards. One main question comes up out of this. If you don't place it back, is that a crime? I mean, you didn't steal this yourself, but you still ended up in possession of it. Is it not your responsibility to return what was stolen to the proper owner? The Greybeards claim to be the owner, but they aren't Jurgen Windcaller, so how do they know what he wants? The safe bet here is to return the horn after you've beaten Alduin and end off your Skyrim run with a minimum of 2 crimes committed and 800 softlocks survived. If you've enjoyed this video, it might surprise you to learn that I only recently hit 10,000 subscribers. I know, this is Oscar-worthy stuff right here. If you want to help me reach even bigger heights with my content, it would mean a lot if you like, commented, and subscribed, but only if you feel I've earned it. In the meantime, I'll see you guys next Saturday. Peace out and goodbye.